Hey everyone, welcome to another video from the Average Jake Firefighter blog. I've seen a lot of videos out there about rim lock forcible entry, and here lately we've been focusing a lot on that on my shift because we just were fortunate to have a lot of forcible entry stuff donated to us. So we got a couple rim locks donated to us, and one of the things that I feel people lack to share is how the lock is constructed, which could make these locks difficult. There's a lot of great videos out there about plan A's, plan B's, things of that nature, but there's one feature that I feel is super important to share with everybody on why these locks are so difficult to force and why you may have to just go ahead and resort to a plan B or a conventional forcible entry method. First, before we get started into the point I was going to make, I just want to share really quick what we've used for a forcible entry simulator for this rim lock. It's really just a standard piece of wood, scrap wood we just found lying around. And so we just took the lock that we were donated to us or we purchased from the store. This was one of the ones we purchased from the store. And we just mounted it to that piece of wood and had it in our shop. As you can see, it's just mounted. It's not very thick at all, but it's pretty standard residential door size. And we just mounted it to the front and rear of that piece of wood to allow us just to get some forces on it. This short video is just going to show you some of the functionalities of the lock. This rim lock was equipped with a night latch. As you can see, the night latch, when it's activated, it prevents the lock from being activated with either a key or the latch behind the door. So the night latch is kind of important. If you have a night latch, even if you pull the lock cylinder, you're going to be unable to manipulate the lock and you're going to have to resort to your conventional forcible entry. Now to the basic point of the video. You can see in the picture that these screws that are held, that hold the lock in place rather, have like dimples in the screw threads. Those are breakaway threads. They are, if you read the instruction manual, they talk about their being equipped with 2 breakaway screws, and those are the screws that secure the lock cylinder in place. It is to prevent someone from doing exactly what we're trying to do. It is to prevent a burglar or someone from coming in there being able to rip the lock cylinder out of the door and manipulate the lock. So those screws at those certain points break away. And when we show the video of us trying to force this rim lock, you'll see that that's exactly what happens. It basically rips the lock face right off at that breakaway point, making it impossible for us to reach back there and manipulate the lock, making us have to resort to our standard conventional forcible entry techniques. So here's the video of us forcing that lock cylinder. You can see the firefighter in there trying to remove that bezel ring that will allow for our K-tool to seat over the lock cylinder. That's important because if you put the K-tool on with that bezel ring still there, it's going to be very difficult for you to get a good grasp on any of the, no matter what kind of tool you're using to pull the lock cylinder. He's putting the K-tool on the lock cylinder now. He's going to tap it on there with the Halligan, and then he's going to utilize a sledgehammer that we just had sitting around a small sledge to force the K-tool onto the lock cylinder to pull it. So what you can see there is that the lock face came almost completely off, and it broke away at those 2 screws. He uses the adze in there to try to force that rest of that piece off. And as you can see in the close-up here, it broke away at that screw point. So the lock cylinder is still in place. All it did was those 2 breakaway screws broke away at the lock face. The lock cylinder is still in place and the door is still locked. So then we would have to resort to our standard or conventional forcible entry methods, either forcing the door or trying to drive the lock off of the door. Here's a close-up of the lock face and the bezel ring from the rim lock. Again, what happened was that breakaway screw activated and did exactly what it's supposed to do and broke away that lock face cylinder and still left the lock cylinder in place. When that happens, you can either try to drive that lock off the back of the door or you're going to have to resort to your conventional forcible entry methods. depending on which one you use, I think is depending on what kind of call you have. If you're going to a fire and you know you have a confirmed working fire, then I would suggest not even going through the lock and just going ahead and forcing the door conventionally. That's obviously, of course, dependent on your department's SOGs and SOPs and what your bosses tell you guys to do on your trucks or engines. But for me, if it's a confirmed working fire, I'm not going to try to be going through the lock. I'm going to go directly for the door and try to go inside and get that fire. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it was informative. Remember to invest in yourself, invest in your team every day. Spend an hour reading something about the fire service, spend an hour training hands-on something about the fire service, and spend an hour in the gym every day so that we can make sure that we're educated, make sure that we're physically fit, and we're trained enough to do our job so that we can be out there and win and be successful. Make sure you check out averagejakefirefighter.com. Check out the YouTube channel. Check us out on Twitter at averagejakeff, at Instagram at averagejakeff. And thanks for watching. Stay safe out there.